Skull Buffs, baby.
A sleeping Buffaloes team wakes up after a bye week, and now they got to hop right onto a plane and head to Salt Lake City, Utah, where they take on the Utah Utes. I'm Liam Howard alongside Aditya Markham, Shane Holcomb, and Xavier McNevitz. We are here for some more SBS Football Live. Let's take a look back at the Iowa State game. Coming off the bye week, this feels like forever ago, but Shane, I'm going to start with you. What impressed you in this upset win?
Yeah, leading into this game, Liam, the talk was, can CU finish these leads in the second half? And that's what they did, right? They scored in their open possession in the third quarter. The first time they did that since the Wyoming game. I want to highlight this third quarter offense. In my opinion, I think it was the best all season, highlighted by that pass from Salter to Amari Miller that really kind of ignited the fire in that stadium and got the fans on their seats. I questioned on the same exact desk 2 weeks ago, can CU put that foot down? Can they respond to adversity? They answered both of those calls last Saturday.
Yeah, 14 points in that third quarter was the difference in that game. Xavier, what are your thoughts? What impressed you in that game?
I mean, that second half, just in general, was the difference maker in that game. But I got to say that second half defense, well, they still couldn't stop the run. They did shut down Rocco Beck. I think Rocco Beck had 51 yards passing in that second half. 1 for 5, third down in that second half. And they had that humongous fourth down stop. When the Cyclones went for it in their own territory, that set up CU for the game-sealing field goal. So
yeah, absolutely. And shutting down Rocco Beck was something that we talked about last week on the show as needing to be a key focus for that team. Aditya, what do you think?
I think they did a good job. Colorado's offense seemed much more in pace with each other, like in rhythm, and the receivers really honed in on their skills and responded to Caden Salter's changing in the skill, and that they the play calling wasn't really flashy or like impressive, but they got the job done against the Cyclones.
For me, I'm going to talk about one guy in particular. That's Tawfiq Bayard. This dude broke his hand in this game on a tackle. He goes to the sidelines, gets a club put around it, walks back out onto the field, and secures an interception in the red zone in the fourth quarter. That is the dog mentality that this defense has been looking for the entire season, and they got it from Tawfiq Bayard. Now he is emerging as a leader right now for this defense, and they are very, very excited to see that. But next, we're going to look at, there were still some things to improve on for this Colorado team. Shane, what do you think were some things that disappointed you and you could see some improvement in moving forward?
Yeah, well, Xavier mentioned earlier, but guys, the rush defense was just abysmal, right? You got to remember, too, Iowa State was without their starting running back in this game, but it didn't matter because Abu Sama came in, he stepped in, he filled that role incredibly, guys. 177 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground, get to 7.4 yards per attempt. That's a lot of buck for their change. And CU struggled with this all season, right? They're going to hopefully be able to contain Utah. We'll talk about that matchup a little bit later, but it seems to be a kind of a repeating theme, and that worries me a little bit, Liam.
Yeah, and I think that's something that has, like you said, been a reoccurring theme. Xavier, is that something that you've seen out of this Buffs team as well?
I mean, it hasn't improved, right? It's been the same thing all season. You flat out can't give up 236 yards on the ground and 7.4 yards per carry to their backup running back, right? I mean, that run stop's got to improve, especially against Utah.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. If this defense wants to be successful against a team like Utah, that's where they're going to have to improve. Is that where you think they're going to need to see some improvement, or did you have a different take?
Yeah, I agree with you, Shane, Xavier, that the rush defense is pretty horrendous, I would say, in my opinion, that if the backup running back's in and they're giving up that much yardage, how much are they going to give to a starting running back in the other Big 12 teams? It's like the defense really didn't lock in on the line, and that they gave too much yardage, and they got to control the tempo more, even with a backup in the game.
Yeah, I want to change up just a little bit here to what we're looking at because obviously that run defense disappointing. But I want to look at the tight end involvement in this game. Once again, failed to get the tight ends involved in this offense, and that's something that they've struggled with this entire season. I want to look at Zach Atkins in particular. Once again, just 2 catches for him. This guy has been a receiving tight end his entire career. He went to a D2 school to be a pass-catching tight end. That's what they used him for there. He's got the build of a pass-catching tight end, and when they brought him in, that was kind of the notion that people were getting from him. This is going to be another pass catcher for Caden Salter to throw to. So far, at no point in the season have they used him in that way. They've had to struggle to look to other directions. I think that they could be using him a lot more. So that was disappointing to me, and I think that that's something that could see some improvement moving forward. Then at the very end of the game, after the upset win, there was, of course, the field storming, and Colorado has become a little bit notorious for that, storming the field after games. Shane, do you think it's getting a little out of control? Was this a justified field rush?
Well, Liam, on my notes, I wrote, show some bark on this question because I got a lot of strong feelings on this. I don't think it's out of control at all. What I think is out of control is the Big 12 fining these schools $50,000 for rushing the field. You think that's bad? Go down south. The SEC charges these teams $500,000. This is college football last time I checked. What we celebrate is the pageantry, the upsets. These conferences, they got too much greed. They shouldn't take that away from us as well.
I'm going to be the horse holder here, right? Shane's up here. I'm going to bring it down. It was a slobber knocker of a game, 12 punts, right? Colorado honestly got lucky. Really shouldn't have won that game. I'm going to say no, they shouldn't have rushed the field. If there were any ball knowers in that student section, they would not have rushed the field.
Yeah, that context certainly important. And the Wyoming and Delaware games also had people creeping up towards the guardrails before security had to put a stop and say, my goodness, what are you doing? What are your thoughts?
I think it's justified, but I think also you got to control as if you're a fan. Obviously, I'm a fan of CU, and that I would rush the field too if I was in the stands. But there's a time and place. Obviously, they're ranked 22nd, and that they are a good team. But I think that, if you're gonna rush after every game, what's the point of rushing? You're supposed to do it after a big win, not after not that wasn't a big win for the school of CU, but that you should save this rushing field for something extraordinary.
Yeah, I think I'm right there with you. It's all dependent on context. I think that this is justified in this case. You're beating a ranked team after a slow start to the season, but I think that it really, like I said, that context is important, and the Wyoming and Delaware games, with people creeping forward to the front, trying to rush the field, that's where I got to stop them. But to be honest, I think that Folsom Field is a field that was built to be rushed. There is quite literally a ramp from the student section onto the field. If you are the Big 12, maybe give CU a pass. I don't know.
One more thing on this, Liam, before we switch over to the next topic. CU, this is a team that hasn't beaten a ranked opponent at Folsom Field since 2019, okay? Mm-hmm. They've been pretty few and far between for excitement around on the hill. So why not? The students, they should have their fun because these wins don't come by often.
Yeah, that's that first ranked win at home of the Coach Prime era.
But they also rushed the field against Colorado State.
That's a great point.
They also rushed the field against Colorado State where they were 14-point favorites, and they barely won that game. And corn chuckers as well.
Yeah. And Dion was not a fan of the fine being dished out to the school. He figured everyone should pitch in out of the media room, but that's not the type of money that we have. We're gonna look at the Iowa State game a little bit closer. We're gonna go ahead and send this to Leo Rivera and Harrison Simeon, who have a film breakdown of that game.
Welcome back, guys, to Buffs Film Review. I'm Harrison Simeon alongside Leo Rivera. And we have a very eventful game to recap as the Colorado Buffaloes executed their most impressive win of 2025 over the number 22 Iowa State Cyclones. Quarterback Caden Salter had a stellar day, but our first play we're going to go over is a run, and you'll see why.
Yeah, we have 3 down defensive linemen for Iowa State here. Colorado sees that. They're going to take advantage of the numbers. So what we're going to see here is a very key block by number 85, Zach Atkins, who will be able to come and get this outside linebacker here. And then we're going to wrap Jordan Sean coming down from the left side, and we're going to have a beautiful alley.
Yeah, and you see a big man like that coming downhill, it's curtains for Iowa State's defense. They have the numbers advantage, and that's an easy walk-in, untouched touchdown for Micah Welch. Next play, we have another close to the goal line set, and the Buffs red zone offense looked excellent against Iowa State.
Yes, it did, and that's going to be because Caden Salter's going to stand in the pocket and deliver. As you can see here, it could be a run look for Colorado, but the offensive line is going to do a fantastic job of picking up this three-man, down front from Iowa State.
Yeah, Iowa State looks like they might blitz, but they end up going into a big zone coverage, bunch formation for Colorado. And Caden Salter, he's taking his time. He's having a tough time finding a window for this throw, but that offensive line gives him time to survey, and then he flips it right over that safety's head, who was baiting him into possibly getting an interception. You look at the close replay, it was very close, closer than this angle might look, but in a perfect spot for Joseph Williams to make such an impressive catch right in the corner.
Yeah, it was a fantastic grab by JoJo there on this one. Here we're going to see a little bit of a blunder from this Colorado offensive line, Harrison. They're going to go and slide, towards the left, but Zarian McGill's going to miss the blitzing defender who's going to come right behind the right side of him. But shout out Caden Salter, who stands and delivers.
Yes, the difference is Caden Salter isn't scared. We see a safety blitz, free rusher right up in Caden Salter's grill. But what does he do? He doesn't bail out of the pocket. He doesn't try to make something that isn't there. He just stands, looks for an out route. His favorite target last Saturday, Joseph Williams, on an out route. Perfectly timed. Timing was very much key on that outbreaker.
Yeah, that connection was key all night long, Harrison. And here we're going to see, what the product of a good run game does for you.
Yeah, it's the decisive moment. 3rd and 17, the Buffs could just choose to run. Iowa State has one more timeout, punt it away. The defense had been playing well. They could very much just trust the defense, accept it, but what Deion Sanders said is that they never even considered running. They were going to try to make this play, and what quarterback Caden Salter does with this play action, as you look at this linebacker here, he is going to be in a Tampa 2 formation, which means these safeties are going to be, you already see this guy flipping his hips, already bailing out to this side. This safety is going to be taking care of this side of the field. This linebacker should be taking care of the middle, but what happens?
Yeah, we get him frozen right here. He's going to take 2 read steps forward, looking at Xavier Hill pulling, thinking it's going to be a run to Dallin Hayden, and that's going to give just enough time for Joseph Williams to sneak open.
Yes, he had an excellent day, over 180 yards through the air from Joseph Williams, and Caden Salter makes the perfect read, finding this one up the middle. We'll look at a second angle in just a moment. But cover 2 beater from Colorado, Joseph Williams with the speed, courtesy to ESPN for this little animation, and Salter just looks around and makes the perfect read up the seam, right up the middle. Joseph Williams, curtains, big upset, fans rush the field shortly after. That is how the Buffs dominated, or maybe not dominated, but got the win over Iowa State. Back to you guys at the desk.
So Colorado now coming off the heels of that upset and a bye week. They're heading to Salt Lake City to take on the Utah Utes, and they are led by one star on that offense. That's Devon Dampier, their star quarterback, the transfer from New Mexico. But he is questionable for this game, may not play. What do you think the key to shutting him down is if he plays?
Well, it's watching the BYU defense and what they did to him last weekend, in my opinion, and that was making him make plays on obvious passing situations. I will say, though, they're explosive with his legs, Devon Dampier, and something that doesn't bode well for the CU defense because, guys, Colorado's already given up 3 career rushing yard days to quarterbacks this season. They only played 7 games last time I checked. Dampier has the ability to make that 4. He's got a lot of explosive ability. He's got the second best QBR. I think that goes a little bit under the radar as well. He is a good passer of the ball. I know he looked a little frantic yesterday, but I will say, Xavier, susceptible to making a mistake. He has 4 interceptions in his last 3 games with those 2 losses against Texas Tech and BYU.
Yeah, and those career rushing days you mentioned being Bear Bachmeier for BYU had his career high in rushing yards against Colorado. Haynes King did the same with Georgia Tech, and then Connor Wiegman as well, not known to be a dual threat guy, but he carved up the Colorado run defense. What are your thoughts on that, Xavier?
Since you mentioned all 3, I'm just going to go down the list, right? Haynes King, 156 yards, 3 touchdowns. Connor Wegman, 83 yards, 2 touchdowns. Bear Bachmeier, 98 yards. I think the key is you got to straight up contain. Too many times this year, you've seen those defensive ends bite on play fakes, bite on options. You have to – if I'm Robert Livingston, I'm calling out Arden Walker. I'm calling out those defensive ends. You got to contain. You got to contain Devon Dampier and his legs. And to Shane's point, you got to make him pass, right? I mean, those 4 interceptions in the last 3 games. You have to make him pass.
Yeah, putting the ball in the air is going to be key, especially now that Colorado is seeing that secondary step up behind Tawfiq Bayard's leadership. Aditya, what are your thoughts?
I agree with you, Shane and Xavier, that they got to limit Dampier to using his arm in third down situations, certain long passing situations. They got to limit him because obviously he's a run first guy. He can improvise on the run. He can throw. And I think that discipline from the linebackers and the cornerbacks and entirely the entire defense has to make sure he doesn't make any big plays on us like the other three quarterbacks have.
Yeah, and that dual threat ability has been a powerful weapon for him, not only at Utah, but at New Mexico as well. He was the same way there. And their backup quarterback, Bird Ficklin, who may get the start in this game, depending on if it is going to be Dampier or not, he plays a very similar style of football. So I think either way, if you're Colorado, the key to shutting this quarterback down is, I'm going to go with a Dabo Sweeney quote here, BYOG, bring your own guts if you're this front seven for the Colorado Buffaloes. They have to step up. They've seen a few guys do it. London Merritt has been one of those guys recently getting to the quarterback very easily. Martavius French has been stepping up at that linebacker position. He's been a consistent face that they've seen there. But those other positions, they've rotated guys around. They've tried different stunts. They've tried various different things to stop the run, and nothing has worked consistently so far. So if they're going to stop Devon Dampier or Bird Ficklin, whoever it ends up being, that's going to be the key. The defensive line and the linebackers have to step up and play with some guts. But we're going to look to the stadium that they're going to be playing in, which is Rice-Eccles Stadium in Salt Lake City. Where do you think, Shane, that you would rank the atmosphere there, the student section, what Colorado's going to be walking into among what they might see around the rest of the Big 12?
Well, first of all, I want to just say I think it's unfair for me to maybe make this judgment because I have never been to the state of Utah. But also, I hear Rice-Eccles Stadium is a pretty cool place to play the game of football. I would put it in my top 5 or top 3. I will say this is probably the toughest challenge on the road that Colorado will have to face all season.
Yeah, that's been a place that they've historically struggled as well. Xavier, what are your thoughts?
I mean, they haven't won there since 2011, right? I mean, for teams that are in Colorado, it's also at 4,000 feet above sea level, right? I think that it's got a pretty good atmosphere because, first off, it's Utah. First off, next it's Salt Lake City. What else is there to do in Salt Lake City but cheer on them Utes and cheer on them Utah Jazz? So that's all I got to say.
Yeah, those fans are going to be showing up and showing out. Aditya, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you, Shane. I definitely would rank Rice-Eccles in the top 5. That, obviously altitude, CU is accustomed to playing at Folsom. Obviously, beautiful stadium. I'm sure there are mountains in the background just like CU. And that Utah has been one of the most physical programs in the Big 12 since all the schools have joined, and that it can create a very challenging environment for any school, let alone CU.
Yeah, and I think that they certainly make their way into that top 5 now as far as atmosphere is concerned, especially since, you look at Texas Tech can't throw tortillas on the field anymore. That got banned this past week because we're in the no-fun league of college football. But I think that Rice-Eccles is certainly in that top 5. And the last time that CU was there, they set an attendance record. That's since been broken, but you got to think about it. That could 100% happen again. The attendance in general at Rice-Eccles has been increasing yearly. The record has been broken multiple times a year since that game. So things only going up, trending up. The football program trending up in Utah, and I think that's certainly going to be the case once again in this game. We're going to look at a guy now that Colorado is going to go into this game without. That's Terrence Love. This is a safety for this team that maybe some folks at home did not know was on the team. Transferred to Colorado from the University of Auburn over the offseason. Was looked at as a guy who could step up and be a future of the secondary. But suddenly, before the Iowa State game, he was inexplicably removed from the roster. No explanations been given since. Shane, what do you think about this very strange situation?
Well, you mentioned Liam came over from Auburn, but listen, he didn't get that much playing time with the Tigers, right, in the SEC, and I know that's really good, football program, but this is a guy that was a former 4-star recruit, had a lot of talent, a lot of people who wanted him out of high school, and now obviously he's not on the CU roster anymore. We might get some clarification, a little bit of more of that maybe after this weekend, because no one's asked Dion the question, and that's what I'm surprised about, right? We don't really have much answers right now, so all we know is he's not on the team. He's only played 1 game this season. That was in the week 1 opener against Georgia Tech, but I will say, Tawfiq Byard, you mentioned him earlier, he has been a rock for CU in the same safety position. The depth will be tested, but I will say, Ben Feneseth, Carter Stoutmeyer, they can step up if they're needed.
Yeah, those guys stepping up certainly could be a contributor to why Love is not on this team anymore. But keynote, he hasn't mentioned going to the transfer portal or anything just yet. He has not made any official announcement. So far, not seeming like it was his choice. Xavier, what do you think?
I mean, I really don't think it matters, right? The Buffs' defensive back room was supposed to be the strongest this season, and while they haven't been super impressive, they're still super deep there, especially at safety. I mean, you mentioned Tawfiq Byer, but Carter Stoutmeyer's been having a decent year, right? And then Ben Finnesseth, right? He's a formidable backup, right? While probably not as good as Terrence Love, who came from an SEC program, I do think that the Buffs' defense has been what it is without Terrence Love. I think it's going to stay the same. I don't think it really matters that much.
Yeah, and it'll certainly be interesting, at least for, with him being having been a junior, maybe a guy who could have stepped up. That'll be interesting to see the impacts in the future. But Adelia, do you think that he's going to his absence is going to be felt anywhere near in the near future?
I would say it's surprising. I mean, when players are moving midseason, obviously ask questions. Again, surprised that question hasn't been asked yet to Coach Sanders. And obviously, you hope that when it's an unexplicable reason, obviously, praying for maybe something's wrong. But I would say, at least for CU, that it opens up more time for the younger guys to develop, and that obviously it still hurts to lose that kind of potential player, but it still opens up opportunity for those younger players at CU's roster to show up and do the work.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think that this is not something that hurts this team, but overall, the first word that just comes to my mind is just disappointing. Because I was at the spring game this past semester, and I remember one of the guys we focused on in that pregame show was Terrence Love, who had and him transferring to the school, and that was something that was like, hey, look at this guy. This guy could actually pick up from where this weak secondary has been left off, losing obviously the likes of Shiloh Sanders, Cameron Silman, Craig, losing some guys in that secondary. So now having to miss another guy who could have potentially stepped up for this program, that's certainly something that they are. I think they are going to feel in the next couple of years. I think that's where he could have made his impact felt. But we're going to move a little further outside of the CU bubble. We're going to look at the Big 12 as a whole for our next segment, the Big 12 review. We're going to go now a little past the midway point in the season. Some teams are right at their midpoint. Who is now your updated conference champion pick? Now that we've gotten into conference play, we've seen some football unfold.
Well, it's the same team who I said just 4 weeks ago to win this conference, and I still have a lot of confidence in them, and that's Texas Tech, right? In my opinion, this Red Raiders team is the most talented roster from top to bottom. Mind you, they went to Arizona State. I don't know why the AP poll dropped them 7 spots. That's not a bad loss by any means. Let's not forget, too, Baron Morton, their star leading quarterback signal caller, was not on the field that day. I do think, though, talking about that Arizona State game, we might see a title rematch in Dallas. I like the Sun Devils and Texas Tech to make it to Dallas, but I will say, a sleeper, watch out for Cincinnati. If they can beat TCU, if they can beat BYU, or go even 1-1 in those games, guys, they have a legit shot with the tiebreakers, how that works. They're still undefeated in league play at the moment.
Yeah, those are two very high-powered offenses that you just mentioned. Xavier, are you going the same way?
I'll tell you what, I'll glaze Cincinnati later. But, yeah, I got Texas Tech. I mean, top 3 offense in college football, 500 yards per game. That's hard to beat. Their defense can lock down, and they should not have lost to Arizona State, right? I mean, it was a close win for Arizona State, and they have their starting quarterback that win that game, and they might be top 5, right? I do think that they should not have dropped 7 spots in the AP poll, and they shouldn't. Texas Tech is the team to beat in the Big 12. I've said it every time I've been on this show. Texas Tech's legit. It's that oil money.
Yeah, they are legit. And, of course, that loss coming without Baron Morton, their star quarterback. Aditya, do you have a different take on who you think is going to win this conference?
I got to disagree with you. I would say ASU, the Sun Devils. Obviously, last year with Cam Scadaboo in the CFP, they showed off. And Sam Levitt and Jordan Tyson have played so well since then. They're ranked 21st, if I'm not mistaken. Obviously, you guys mentioned starting quarterback cover Tech, but in the whole, that Tech is still a good team, even without the starting quarterback. That Jordan Tyson's been a game changer, stretching the field, and I think ASU is a pretty dominant team to take the Big 12 this year.
I tell you what, I love both of those teams. I especially love Texas Tech, but I gotta switch the graphic up here a little bit. I gotta be the horse holder for 1 second. I want to talk about the team that is not lost just yet. That's BYU. The BYU Cougars are undefeated as a whole and in conference play, currently leading this conference and looking. I mean, they're right now on a warpath to take this conference championship. They win games that are close, and they aren't impressive wins, but they're gritty. That's the brand of football that BYU plays. That's the brand of football that every time we've talked about them, we've known this is what BYU is going to do. This is how they're going to win games. Bear Bachmeier is a winner. As a freshman, incredible poise, and just a guy who is going to go out there and win you football games. And that's one of the best freshman quarterbacks, if not the best freshman quarterback in the country. Not many people expected that. They run the ball well. LJ Martin, of course, their running back. They know how to they have that ground and pound game that can wear down a defense. And then, of course, their coach. Their coach has been with this team for 10 years now. And their second half adjustments have shown every time that they go into halftime in a close game, he gets this team ready to come back out there and play incredibly, incredibly well. So that is going to move us to our next segment in the Big 12 conversation. It looks like I'm actually missing my. I'm missing my.
Someone say Houston?
Yeah, I think that's going to be our Houston. Yeah, that's going to be our Houston topic. We're going to talk about the Houston Cougars. We're mentioning teams that can actually contend for that number 1 spot in the Big 12. Houston's right up there. Do you think they make the conference championship?
Well, so there's still a lot of season left. And listen, I respect what Houston's doing so far. They've come a long way under second-year head coach Willie Fritz. They went 4-8 last season. They already have more wins than that this year, already bowl eligible. But come on, guys, let's settle down on this. They had an impressive win versus U of A, but their remaining schedule is still pretty tough. They got to go to Baylor, to Tempe to play Arizona State. I don't think they're going to win either of those games. I find it hard to believe that team makes it to Dallas. Although it'd be a cool story.
It would be a cool story, and I think that they've really impressed a lot of people so far, and that would just continue to do what they've done all season. But like you mentioned, that's a very difficult schedule to go up against. Xavier, do you think that they make it through that unscathed?
No, they don't. I mean, me and Shane got the same points. I mean, the rest of their schedule's hard. They go to Tempe this week, and then they hopefully capture 2 dubs against UCF and West Virginia, but I could see them losing to UCF, and then they got to finish out in Texas against Baylor, right? That Baylor team's legit. TCU's legit. I mean, they have a top 5 passing defense, but they've also faced bottom 5 passing offenses in the Big 12, right? I mean, against top 5 passing defenses or passing offensive, they're 1-1. So I don't know if that passing defense. I've said passing a lot. I don't know if that passing defense will be able to hold up against TCU, against Baylor, against Arizona State. I really don't think that they make it. Well, but shout out Willie Fritz.
Yeah,
he's done a good job.
Exactly. I think that they've done a good job of winning the games they need to win. But you mentioned the passing; that has been the name of the game for them. They go against Texas Tech with arguably the elite passing offense in this conference, and they get smacked. So that's certainly something to think about. Aditya, what do you think?
I would say I don't see Houston making it. Obviously, a great team, but I think they're too inconsistent week to week. That their offense stalls in big moments, their defense can't get off the field in third down situations, and that obviously in a conference this powerful at the top, that they don't have the discipline and depth, and you need that in this conference, and I don't think Houston has that to reach title game.
Yeah, I'm right there with you as well. I think that this is going to be a very difficult end of the season to get out of. I mean, obviously a good team that has surprised a lot of people, but the tough schedule down the stretch. You got to face Arizona State. You got to face TCU. You got to face Baylor. Those are offenses that take the top off of any defense they face. And quite frankly, not something that they've had to deal with to this point in the season to a degree to actually prepare them. And then they got UCF and West Virginia. UCF certainly was not a pushover, at least early in the season. Mm-hmm. And so that game could go the other way. West Virginia, I think, is certainly the win that they can count on. But you never know. That's a team that can surprise people if they play the right way. We're going to go to a bit of an interesting segment, though. We mentioned a lot about how the Big 12 is a deep conference at the quarterback position. We're going to flip it to the other side of the ball. And let's look at a guy that you would hate to go up against in the Oklahoma drill. A lot of big boys in this conference. Who would you absolutely hate to see when you stand up for that drill?
Well, not only would I hate to see this guy, but I also love saying his name, Dante Corleone. That's right, Dante Corleone, defensive lineman from Cincinnati. I had to look twice when I read this stat because I didn't believe it at first. He benches 45, squats 615, and can sumo deadlift guys at 585 pounds. This guy was nicknamed the Godfather by his teammates and ranked 14th on the athletics list this season, titled College Football freak list. If you're on that list, it must be doing something right, guys.
Yeah, I think that's, I mean, like you mentioned, squatting over 600 pounds, that is a dangerous thing to be running straight into. Xavier, what do you think?
You know, I didn't pull up this guy's weight room numbers, right? But I'm sure he's got close to the same. Carlos Allen Jr. of Houston is a beast, right? I mean, he destroyed the Buffs. He had 1.5 tackles for loss, and I don't know if I'm the only one that played football at this table, I would not want to go against 6'1" and 300 pounds, right? Like I've gone against that before. I'm never again, right? I mean, he leads defensive tackles in the Big 12, and in tackles, right? I mean, no, I would not want to go against that guy.
I mean, Colorado certainly wasn't up to the challenge, and like you said, leads all defensive tackles in the Big 12 in tackles. He's got 20 of his own, so that is a dangerous guy to be going up against. Aditya, who do you got?
I'm taking TCU linebacker Caleb Larms-Orr. To me, he's a beast. Sideline to sideline, fast. He hits with intent. I think he's built for contact, and that's precisely what he does for TCU. And if I saw him in Oklahoma, I might just run away from the field.
That's probably the safest option. If you're trying to save your life in this scenario, I think. For me, I'm going to go with a guy, I got to counter you. I think he's got the best nickname in honestly college football. I'm going to talk about Dominique Orange, a.k.a. Big Citrus, as coined by his teammates. This dude is 6'4", 325 pounds. He's dealt with injuries at times, which has really limited his draft stock this season. But before that, he was viewed as a first-round pick going into this year. This is a big dude, and he's also a magician on the side, if you guys weren't aware. He makes running backs disappear when they come through the offensive line. So that is not a guy that I would want to be going up against. But that's going to move us to our next selections. This time going to be picking games instead of guys who are going to be putting us on our rear ends in football practice. So let's start off with the Kansas State versus Kansas game. Got a rivalry going on, and this one's going to be in Lawrence.
Well, we talk about good names. This one's got a cool one. The Sunflower Showdown. That's right. Kansas State is going to Kansas. Guys, the Wildcats have won this matchup not once, not twice, not three. I feel like I'm LeBron on the Heat at this point. 16 straight times. That's
Wow.
right. You heard me right. 16 straight. The last two matchups, I will say, have been decided by a combined 8 points. I do, though, think that Jalen Daniels flips the script this weekend. I think he makes enough plays. Kansas wins this one in front of a home crowd, 30-27.
Yeah, I think that's when you think football programs out of these ones, you certainly think Kansas State first. But, man, Kansas is turning that trend around. Xavier, what do you think?
So, I mean, they just had a big win against TCU going into their bye week, right? Kansas State withheld that TCU air raid, and Kansas passes for, I think, the third most yards in the Big 12, right? It's a rivalry game. The Jayhawks are favored by a field goal at home, but they allow the most yards rushing in the Big 12, and that Kansas State run game is legit with Dylan Edwards. I got Kansas State by a touchdown.
Yeah, getting Dylan Edwards back was huge for that team. That was someone that they were banking on this season, and, of course, that injury really delaying that offense. Yeah, what do you think about this game?
I'm also taking Kansas State in this one. Obviously, Avery Johnson and Dylan Edwards had a slow start to the season. But I think that with the experience, I think they'll be able to do it. Kansas has playmakers, but K-State's discipline gives them the edge in this game.
I think that Kansas State is a team that certainly has brought that at times, and I think that the area that they've struggled that I think a lot of people were expecting them to do better at was that defensive line getting to the quarterback. That was a part of their team that I think a lot of people were expecting to be among the best in the Big 12. Well, we really haven't seen that so far, and when you're going up against a team like Kansas, their main weakness has been that offensive line. Offensive line has struggled. Jalen Daniels thrives against teams that don't get to him well because he actually has time to throw back there. So behind his performance, I'm going to go ahead and take Kansas to flip that script just as you did. Yes, indeed. We're going to the number 11 BYU Cougars taking on the now unranked Iowa State Cyclones, thanks to your boys here in Boulder. Who do you got in that game?
Well, first of all, can we just take a moment to express how much this guy next to me loves Jalen Daniels? You haven't heard him talk about him before. He loves the guy. I mean, he's got some good points. He's a great
first-round quarterback.
I digress. BYU, Iowa State. Listen, BYU, number 11 in the country. They're coming off an incredible win against rival Utah. But that being said, I think this might be a classic letdown spot. Listen, Iowa State went to Boulder, and they kind of got embarrassed. I know the score was kind of close, but CU really pulled away in that second half. backs against the wall. Matt Campbell, his name's being talked about for a potential opening with the Penn State head coaching job. I know he has his team prepared to come and win this game at home. I think 24-21 Cyclones walk-off field goal.
So a close game there, going not in favor of BYU. That would be the first time they've experienced that this season.
Happen at some point.
It's been a lot of them. You would feel like that. Xavier, do you think that's what's going to happen in this game?
I do not. I have it being a close game, right? But BYU's defense is too legit to quit, right? I mean, that Iowa State's coming off a bye week, right? I mean, they just lost to the Buffs, so they might have more time to prepare for BYU and that defense, but BYU's gritty, man. And I think BYU is going to take it by a touchdown.
Yeah, I think that another close game, as you've mentioned, that's been BYU's strong point to this point in the year. Do you think they pull it out in a close one?
Yeah, I'm taking BYU. I think they're both complete on both sides. Bear Bachmeier, very impressive freshman quarterback, and they've been clutch late in games, and I trust their team more in a tight fourth quarter against Cyclones.
Yeah, I think that everyone is kind of agreeing on that close game mentality for this one, and I'm in the boat of this. That's where they've had their success. These close games is where they have. No pun intended to their quarterback, they bear down in these games and they stick it through. Their coach, as I mentioned, Kalani Sitake, has been there a decade and he makes incredible halftime adjustments. That was seen against Colorado when they were trailing. They go into the locker room and they won that second half. They win the second half of football games. I think that's going to take place once again against Iowa State. So next up is Baylor taking on number 21 Cincinnati. Battle of two great offenses. Who do you got?
Cincinnati, this is the team that I think needs more national talk because these guys are so good, right? I mean, I know they had that early loss against Nebraska, but in conference play, they've been so incredibly explosive. We talked about Brendan Sorsby's arm on this show a couple weeks back. I like that to be the reason why the Bearcats get this one done. Guys, Baylor has given up 31 points a game. That's not going to mesh well with this high-flying Cincinnati offense.
Now it's time for me to play Cincinnati.
Here we go.
I love me some Brendan Sorsby and that Cincy offense, man. They just put up 49 on Oklahoma State, right? Pretty much an FCS school at this point, right? Sorsby had 284 yards, 4 touchdowns, and Baylor's got the third worst defense in the Big 12. I think that it will be somewhat of a shootout because that Cincinnati defense isn't too impressive, right? And Sawyer Robertson's going to be able to take the top off, but I got Cincinnati taking this one at home.
Yeah, that offensive shootout, as you mentioned, going to be what all the national eyes are on in this game. Both defenses have struggled. Both offenses have found success. Aditya, who do you think is the better of that exchange?
I'm taking Cincy. Defense is legit. Physical front, fast secondary. Brendan Sorsby is a very good quarterback. And Baylor is obviously very good. Sawyer Robertson, very good quarterback. But I don't think the Bears have looked consistent enough to pull it off on the road against a ranked team.
I think that consistency is a very key point in this game for both teams. And if you're looking for a guy to be consistent late in a game, that's Brendan Sorsby. He's a one-man machine on the offense. I mentioned this a few weeks ago, but he had actually led for the first, I believe, 4 weeks of the season. He was leading his team, obviously doing well through the air, but leading his team in rushing as well. This is a guy who does everything for this offense. They are not the same without him, and I think that he is going to be the guy that picks up Cincy the win. Late in that game, man, we are in bad shape if Baylor decides to make us look like fools this weekend. But we're going to move on to TCU taking on West Virginia. Another one I feel like we have a pretty common consensus on. What do you think?
Well, there's been some pretty bad, blowouts this year, right, in some of these games. But I think this might be the worst of them all. Listen, I know TCU has to go on the road to Morgantown. A little bit of a sleepy early kickoff for those guys, but I don't like using this word a lot, but I have to say it because it's just how I feel. TCU by murder, right? I don't know how West Virginia beat Pittsburgh at this point, guys. This is the worst offense in the Big 12, in my opinion, against one of the best. Mind you, TCU kind of needs a win now after losing to Kansas State a few weeks back.
You'd put West Virginia's offense below Oklahoma State?
I would.
Wow.
I would, obviously, yes.
Man, all right. Well, Xavier, do you think that they are quite to that level?
West Virginia's pretty bad. I mean, West Virginia just got dogged on by UCF in the bounce house, right? I think TCU's going to win by a couple touchdowns. West Virginia's got an abysmal passing defense. I think that TCU and that Josh Hoover and company is just going to take the top off in Morgantown and have a field day.
Yeah, certainly a matchup nightmare for the Mountaineers. But Aditya, do you see this game going a different way?
No, I'm on TCU's boat too. They've been trending up, and their offense found rhythm again. And obviously, I mentioned Caleb Alomzor, the guy I don't want to face in Oklahoma drill. That West Virginia is solid, but TCU's got too much firepower.
Yeah, guys, I tell you what, though. West Virginia is going to get smacked. This game is not going to be close. That secondary, as you mentioned, pitiful. And the teams that have beaten TCU have won because they also have a guy who's able to step in there and out-throw Josh Hoover, essentially. These games that TCU loses are never defense wins championships. They are always offense wins. And West Virginia can't do that. They're still rotating quarterbacks at this point in the season.
I mean, mind you, I was watching a West Virginia game a couple weeks back. I forget who it was against, but this was the team that was literally running their quarterback like every single play of the game. That's not going to win you this matchup against TCU.
Yeah, they don't feel confident throwing it through the air. Still do not have a 1,000-yard passer on the season, so TCU by a lot in that one. So we're going to next move to a much better matchup, in my opinion. We got the Houston Cougars taking on the number 24 Arizona State Sun Devils. Who do you got, Shane?
Yeah, well, I love seeing the ranked votes in parentheses next to this Houston team. They deserve it. They've been a great story this year, guys. But Arizona State just has too many playmakers, Xavier, including Jordan Tyson, who I think has the argument as a top 3, top 5 receiver in the country. Again, I respect Houston, but I also expect this to be a pretty comfortable win for the Sun Devils in their home stadium. I talked about they're trying to get back to that Big 12 title game. I think this will be a statement of intent. I think they'll carry it over their success from Texas Tech.
Arizona State's been playing. They've been playing like they've been taken for something has been taken from them after those few losses that they feel like should have gone the other way. This is a team that wants and is hungry to win games right now. Xavier, do you think they take this one?
I think it's going to be a slobber knocker, right? I mean, I love saying that word. I can't wait for you to say that. But, I mean, Arizona State's coming off that dub against Texas Tech, although it was against a backup quarterback. Against Houston, that Levitt and Tyson connection, like you talked about, should be beaming, right? But it's gonna be a slobber knocker between two decent defenses. But I got Arizona State knocking the most slobber and catching the dub at home.
Knocking the most slobber. I could not have said it better myself. Aditya, do you think you can?
No, but ASU is going to take it. My Big 12 pick, Sam Levitt confidence off the charts, Jordan Tyson healthy. When that offense is clicking, it's one of the best in the Big 12. And they just took down number 7 Texas Tech. They're rolling. They're going to take this game.
Yeah, and I think on paper you look at this game and it's like, okay, Arizona State might actually have a defense that they got to match up against. I don't know if that's going to go well for them, but Houston's defense is good because they've played bad offenses. Right. They haven't really had any true tests there. I mentioned that Texas Tech game earlier, and they got smacked in that game, 35 points put up on them by that offense. I think that this defense gets exposed. It's not going to look like the same defense it has so far, Arizona State, in this game.
I mean, to your point, against Arizona, right, I mean, they won that game, but they still allowed Jalen Daniels, your favorite quarterback, to pass for 269 yards, right? So I really think that passing defense isn't as good as it is.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think that this is the game where that really comes to the surface. But that brings us to our feature game. This is going to be the late night game, the last game of the week. The Colorado Buffaloes on the road taking on the Utah Utes. Quarterback still in question. Who do you got?
Well, listen, Utah's defense only is allowing 15 points a game this season. That's the 12th best in the nation, not just the Big 12, in the nation. I think that's going to be just too tall of a task for CU. I will say, the spot for the Buffs because, again, I talked about BYU coming off this emotional rivalry game. It's the same for the Utes, and they also obviously got that loss. I just don't have enough confidence to pick them out right. Again, I struggle to see Colorado's defense containing Devon Dampier, especially if he plays. This is a stat, guys. Utah is first in FBS in third down percentage. They've converted 58% of the time. My biggest concern with CU is, can they get off the field on third down, and can they contain the quarterback run? I like the Utes in this game.
You know, every time I've been on this show, I picked against CU, right? I mean, CU's coming off the bye week. It's going to be a rivalry matchup. The Rumble and the Rockies, and Utah's favored by 2 touchdowns. And Devin Dampier's health in question, though. I think the Buffs defense made some good adjustments in the bye week. Hopefully, Pat Shurmur and that offense made some adjustments, and they stay consistent and close out games. Give me Colorado and Salt Lake City. I got them on the upset, covering the spread, baby.
Ooh, covering the spread. There's certainly a upset if they were to go in there. No ranking attached to Utah anymore, but they are still heavily favored in this game. Aditya, do you see Colorado pulling the upset?
Unfortunately, no. I'm taking Utah. It's tough to win in Rice Eccles in Salt Lake City, and their physicality usually wears teams down. Colorado will put up a fight, but I think Utah will win this game.
Yeah, I think that you mentioned it. Rice-Eccles Stadium is a tough place to play. And I didn't mention this when we were talking about the student section, but in 2021, they won Student Section of the Year. That's out of the country. That's out of the country. They won the best student section in the country that season. And as I mentioned, the seats have only been filling quicker. They've been filling that stadium, and now they got Colorado coming in. And their defense is essentially the inverse of what Colorado has had. They're smash mouth. They hit hard, and they force you to put the ball in the air. That's something that Colorado has struggled with. But with Utah, they are now looking at struggling with that as well. I think this quarterback situation gives the Buffaloes a little bit of hope. And to me, doesn't matter if it's Dampier, if it's Bird, if it's a plane, I do not care. The secondary is ready. They're intercepting passes with one hand and a club on the other, and they're going to do the exact same thing against whoever Utah trots out there this weekend. They're going to Salt Lake City, where they're going to win by 1,000,000 over the Utah Utes. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us here on SBS Football Live. For Liam, Aditya, Shane, and Xavier, thank you very much for joining us, and you heard it here first.